Right, so this one is from Sue, and Sue writes, the meaning of life is just to be alive, although that's a quote from Alan Watts. And Sue is asking, should we be pursuing meaningful goals in order to make ourselves happier?
Well, yes, that's quite a rich question, really. It has a lot in it. She says meaningful goals, and of course that immediately draws one's attention to the fact that in some sense we associate meaning and purpose, but both meaning and purpose have importantly distinguishable meanings. For example, one can puzzle over what a sentence means, but one can also say, you know, my wife means so much to me. And somebody might say, well, if she means so much to you, tell me what it is. And obviously you can't say. So there are certain kinds of meaning, that all the most important kinds of meaning, that cannot be either articulated or specified, except very indirectly and unsatisfactorily. And purposes are like this too. You can have an immediate purpose, getting in the car to go to the shops or whatever it might be. So at the very mundane level, we have lots of purposes. But people might ask, but what is the purpose of life? And too often, rather like the meaning that can't be specified, the purpose that can't be specified is thought not to exist. But this is a mistake on a number of grounds. One is that we accord the meaning to small meanings and purposes by relation to other meanings and purposes. So whatever we're doing, whatever we're describing at a very local or detailed level is inevitably in terms of its relationship to other things. But when you take the whole of life, there is nothing for it to be in relation to. Lee Smolin, the physicist, makes the same point about the cosmos, that we have principles about how parts of the cosmos work, but all those principles, all those theories, all those abstract laws are defined in relation to other things that are also within the universe. So when you are asked to describe the universe, the tendency is to use the ideas that you've already got from parts of the universe to apply to the whole universe. But you can't, because there is nothing that the universe can be in relation to outside of itself. This is actually an ancient point, and it was made by one of my intellectual heroes, the Bishop Nicholas of Cusa in the 15th century, a German philosopher and scientist, that everything that is divine, that is infinite and so on, cannot be grasped or given meaning within the concepts that we have for everyday life. So there are very small meanings and very small purposes, and there are huge meanings and huge purposes. And I think a lovely remark is by Philip McCosker, who's a theologian in Cambridge. And he says, you know, that many of the important things are mysterious, but the mystery is not in the knowledge, because the knowledge itself is mysterious. So let me give an example. I know that I'm going to be born, and I know that I'm going to die, or I know that I'm in love. Now, both of these things are mysterious. But the mystery is not because of a lack of knowledge. I mean, I know these things, but the knowledge itself is mysterious. So it's non-specifiable in terms of the everyday. So when one comes to talk about the meaning in life, I think there are two things. I mean, one is that, yes, for people to enjoy their lives, for most people to enjoy their lives, they are most happy when they're involved in some absorbing task, some absorbing practice. I mean, often when it's with other people, but sometimes it can just be, you know, learning a skill and making a piece of furniture or something, but you're involved in it and you're excited by it and it gives your life meaning. and that is not to be dismissed, but it also can't be the whole of wisdom about life, because a very important thing in Chinese philosophy is the wisdom of non-doing. So we tend to think that meaning and everything comes from such activities, and in a sense it can, but there is a meaning that is greater than that, that actually you only contact when you stop being too involved in detailed everyday small tasks. The wisdom of not knowing, of not doing, of being receptive. And that's not a negative kind of unknowing or undoing. It's not just the absence of what we think of as knowing and doing. It's a sort of deliberate disposition of the self towards something bigger, to allow it to reveal itself to one. And if one is too busy knowing and doing, one drives out the space in which that something can come to be for us. Now, that something that comes to be for us is going to be the great things, the mysterious things, the things that really do give life its meaning, the things that are communicated by art, the things that are communicated by religion, the things that are communicated by love. If we try too hard to turn those into things that have a purpose or a meaning that we understand, we're actually driving out that fertile space of unknowing, undoing, in which the realization can come to us of what those powerful things actually mean and what their purpose is. So I see life as a sort of unfolding of something in the cosmos, that the cosmos is constantly creative and it's constantly unfolding something out of itself. And you may say, but why? But again, the argument can't be made in human terms, because the cosmos is already bigger than anything that it subsumes all the terms that we could use. We can't find a purpose for the cosmos. But within that, what is a lioness for? What is a lioness's purpose? Well, I suppose Richard Dawkins would say its purpose is to pass on lion genes. Doesn't seem very satisfactory to me. You could say that its purpose is going out and killing a gazelle. Well, that's one of its lunchtime purposes, as it were, in the sense of the purpose I have in getting into the car and so on. Let's go beyond that. I think the purpose of the lioness is to show one aspect of what the verb to be can mean. This is a point actually made by the Oxford physicist Andrew Steen, and I think it's a very good one, that in a way the purpose of everyone's being is to add another aspect to what the verb to be means, to bring into being the goodness of whatever it is that a lioness is, without judgment about whether it's good or bad because it kills things and so on. But it just is an expression of some part of the cosmos. And so I think that what Alan Watts is getting at when he says that, purpose, the meaning of life is, I can't remember the expression, what was it in the question? The meaning of life is?
The meaning of life is to live it.
The meaning of life is to live it, is to say that nothing needs to be added to it. I think that's the point Alan Watts is making, that you don't need to add a kind of supervening purpose. This is very important when it comes to talking about divinity, because there's a tendency for certain schools of thought to see God as some sort of purposing engineer who purposed a world for his own purposes. Like in the way that one makes a machine, one makes a clock. I mean, that's the comparison that's often made. And of course, it goes back to the 18th century, this idea of God as a clockmaker, a deistic God, as opposed to a theistic God. And the deistic God is this God who has created a machine and sets it going to do whatever it is that God wants it to do. But that is very much a left hemisphere view. One, it's mechanical. Secondly, it's utilitarian. The thing is for a purpose. And the thing has no freedom, because a machine is not free. A machine is made by its designer to do a certain thing, and that's what it does. It seems to me that the important realization about life is that it is not ever certain, it is not ever determined, that it is not known what will come, and that is fabulously hopeful and creative. That is the essence of a free, creative world. So I think Alan Watts is saying, don't narrow life down. Don't narrow it down to something you could put a phrase on and say, that's what it means, or that's what is my purpose. Instead, yes, absorb yourself in purposes because it's fulfilling in the short term, but there are purposes and meanings that are greater and can only be arrived at by abjuring meanings and purposes of the kind that we think of in everyday life.
That's very interesting. I mean, there's some research recently that showed older people who have a sense of purpose tend to live longer and do better in all kinds of mental health and physical health scores. But it's a really interesting paradox that you can have so many purposes that you can miss the meaning as well. You know, you have relative meanings, and the bigger meanings can be kind of lost.
Absolutely, absolutely, and often because they can't be articulated. But all the really important things in life cannot be articulated. The left hemisphere tends to say, if I can't speak it, because that's its big thing, then it doesn't exist. And you hear philosophers say that if it can't be put into words, it doesn't have any meaning. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's to put the cart entirely before the horse.
Yeah. A lioness can have meaning, which is beyond verbalization. You know, it's
absolutely, and a purpose which would be diminished, utterly diminished, if one said the purpose is to do something mechanical within the world. It isn't. It's to be. It reminds me of, who was it who said the famous thing, a poem should not mean, but be. And in other words, once you start saying, oh, it means this, then you've reduced it to a handful of platitudes. But it is what it is, irreducibly. And I think human beings live their lives in such a way, as it were, the meaning of their life is to be.